and live your life today. It doesn't matter what they say.
Welcome to another episode of Red Lotus Life on YouTube. We're so excited that you're here. As always, I have Sara Elizabeth, my co-creator, here with Red Lotus Life. And today we are going to be speaking on providers and their expectations when they provide. And it's going to be, I think, really interesting because we're kind of doing this on a dime. We haven't really prepared a whole lot. So we're going to have a conversation here, and then we're going to take a deeper conversation over into Patreon. And that's where we're going to be sharing some personal experiences. So, Sara, yeah, this is a hot topic. It's very
Yeah.
alive for both of us, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially with oh my gosh, just being in this shadow of the gene key 4 right now, the shadow of intolerance, and just noticing all of the ways and all of the places as I reflect back how present not only now that this topic is, but also how it has been present, not only for myself and for you, but within the collective. And it's just so blatant to me right now that the intolerance is really kicking in. And, just feeling into how is the gift in the intolerance? Leaning into the strong spine and open heart too.
I love this because I am very familiar with this gene key because it is in my profile. I
Yeah.
journey with it a lot. So I really do know when I am in the unhealed shadow of intolerance and when everything is coming out sideways, right? But then I also do actually see the gift. There is a huge diamond that is deep in this shadow when we are in our grounded, anchored sovereignty, and we're standing up for ourselves in a way that is empowering, but not, that's not even the right word. It's not empowering. It's just really where we're standing in the truth of ourselves. And whenever we
Mhm.
stand in the truth of ourselves and then we're able to express that in a way that's not coming out sideways, whoa, is that a force to be reckoned with? But it's also one that doesn't need to be super forceful, if this makes sense at all. We've been talking a lot about this in Say Yes to Soul. We've been talking a lot about it with Aikido and all kinds of things.
Yes.
So it's gonna be fun. I'm excited to just share more, I think.
Yeah, me too. When you're talking about Aikido, so, well, number one, let's go back to, like you were saying, well, empowerment's not even quite the right word, but no, for me, it's almost like the sacred heart. And again, going back to the strong spine, and when it's not coming out sideways, then we're just grounded in who we are. We are in our sovereignty, and our energy precedes us.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we meet that force, going back to Aikido, when we are meeting the force coming at us, whatever the projection is, with the same equal force in order to neutralize whatever it's coming towards us, then um, what happens is we're able to just, we stand tall, we walk strong, and the opposing force is now, like I said, neutralized. Might be repeating myself a little bit, but
But I think repeating ourselves is needed because I don't feel like people even really know what that means, you know? So I
Mhm.
like the fact that you're repeating all of this because when we are in that sacred heart, it is very different than someone who is just trying to force what they want in the world. So whenever you're talking about our energy precedes us, I
Yeah.
mean, I was very much in my intolerance shadow on Monday, which was a couple of days ago. And I was in both. I actually I had swayed a little bit. I was in my sovereignty with it. I was grounded, I was anchored, I was all of that. My energy preceded itself. People really stayed away from me. Like there was like this little like energy field around me or something like that, because they could actually feel
Yeah.
the tension of that force, right? The force, even though I was not saying anything, I was not giving dirty looks, I was none of those things. They just knew that I was here to address some business
Hmm.
type thing. There's some stuff that needs to be handled right now, you know. But then whenever I say I swung the other way, that's when they were kind of like poking the bear, right? And whenever I knew that I wasn't going to be able to neutralize this with Aikido, I actually removed myself from the situation because I could tell that I was starting to waver in my sovereignty. So I just decided to remove myself. But it's such, intolerance is such a really great gene key to journey with, especially when the whole collective is in this in
Hmm.
this key
Hmm.
as well, because you can literally see it everywhere. I mean, people are just losing it. They're losing it everywhere you go. And those are the ones that are not grounded in that. But then you can also see the ones who are very grounded in who they are. And then they're able to use the intolerance to actually be a huge gift. It's where we have discernment and then we're able to make choices that are in our highest and best. And that's something that I think everyone misses.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question for you, if you don't mind me asking. So, the situation that you were speaking to just now, given that our topic is providers and expectation, can you see the relevance between that situation and a provider and the expectation there?
Oh, absolutely. So with
Yeah.
me, it was all business related and me as a consumer or a client or a customer. And it literally happened all day long. And that was the day. I mean, there's usually one day out of a year for me that I'm like, nope, not tolerating this anymore. I tolerate until I don't. And so I actually went and I was closing accounts and things like that. And so, yeah, absolutely. And that's whenever like it was the poking the bear type thing where they were just expecting me like, we provide this for you. So we just expect you to be a customer or a client. And I went, no, actually, you're providing this, but you're not providing this. And it was actually the expectation that made me go, no, I'm actually going to take, you can't expect me to be a client or a customer, have loyalty to you. There are a million other places that I can go and spend my money or invest my money or whatever it is. And we have a voice with that as consumers. And I think that's something that people have forgotten as well.
Yeah. How were you received? This is part
Um,
of the conversation. I'm so fascinated with this part of the conversation because it's so true.
yeah. So the very first business that I went to, I was closing an account. And the second that I said I was closing an account, it was just head down. Like that person who was helping me was just head down. He had zero confidence, zero self-esteem, zero like anything. And he could just tell by my energy, right? I was very polite, I was very kind, but my energy was, I'm not happy, closing my account, peace out. And he didn't even try. He didn't even try, which I feel that to me, that's pretty sad because I feel like I want people to be in their power, especially if they're in any position of leadership. And this person was in a position of leadership. He was in management at this business. And he had, I don't know if he just had zero authority with that. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, why wouldn't you try to keep a customer? But I think he also wasn't used to a woman coming in too. I think that's something else. Yeah, I don't think
Mhm.
he was used to a woman coming in and closing an account in that way. Like, I think he knew he's not gonna, that was the energy that was preceding me was there's no way I'm going to keep this account. But there also was not an apology or anything else. And that's the thing is they thought they were providing, we're providing this service, so we expect you to continue to be our client, even though our customer service is zero. And then the
Right.
same thing happened at the other one. The other one was like the same thing. I was not, that was the one I was not received well with. And they kept poking at me back. And I was just like, okay, I'm not even going to tolerate this conversation. But that was them being in their shadow as well, right?
Right.
And it put me in my actual shadow to where I was starting to come out sideways. So with the two, I was not able to neutralize that. So that was interesting because then I was able to use mirror theory on myself and reflect and go, okay, so how was I getting pushed out of my sovereignty? Not pushed out. How was I wavering? Right? How was I wavering? How was that weakening? And that was actually remember I was sharing with you that it was mockery and I was being mocked at that point.
Hmm.
Yeah, that I think so. That was probably it. It was, and it was in a public place, so they were actually mocking me, and I'm probably going to end up closing my account there because you don't mock your customers and your clients. But I
Right.
know also she was having a bad day too, right? Obviously, she was having a bad day too. I was having a bad day. And so with the two combined, that Aikido was not working out. Was not working out there. The other one, the other situation that I'd shared with you, I was received very well. And this is actually what I wanted to speak more to over on in Patreon, because with this one, I had an appraiser come to my home and I was not supposed to be here when he came. He didn't show up at the right time, and he ended up just walking into my home, like just walking in. I had my dogs here; they were not
Mm.
okay. Just I wasn't okay. There was a lot of things, right? There was a lot of things that weren't okay. He thought no one was going to be home. He was an hour and a half late. But now, in hindsight of that, there has been actually a lot that's come out. He also ended up keeping my key because he was so flustered and everything with what happened. But this is something that I also want to speak to here because with these businesses that have these expectations, in this situation, I am somebody who has experienced extreme trauma with men breaking into my home unexpectedly and just walking in or whatever. On a few occasions, I've experienced this. And to be honest with you, like he's lucky that my dogs didn't attack him. That actually is liability for me. But then I couldn't sleep well for 2 days. It was over 2 days before I finally got the key back. And I mean, just all kinds of stuff. And no one in the industry even could understand why I was upset. And I wasn't even upset. I was very much in my sovereignty with this one because I do get it and I understand. I totally understood. He thought nobody even lived here. I don't know how he
Oh,
could think that considering we have vehicles and stuff out there. But that's what he's saying. He didn't think anyone lived here. And that he just walked in and but I understood his part. Like in fact, the gift of this is forgiving, of this
mm.
gene key 4.
Hmm.
Isn't it understanding and then forgiving? I can't remember.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yeah, the
okay.
gift is understanding.
Okay.
The city is forgiveness.
Okay. So I understood this situation. I totally understood. And so I was again using Aikido, I was um that same force, right, to neutralize, which wasn't a lot of force. It was just a little bit because
Mm.
he was so flustered and so embarrassed and everything else. And I understood. But at the same time, no one understood what I was going through as a client or as a customer or as a female and someone, and they kept saying, well, why didn't you say this? Well, why didn't you say this? And honestly, that's the expectation, right? I don't have to say why I want my key back. I don't have to say why I am fearful or nervous or any of those things. I'm feeling unprotected, vulnerable, any of those. I don't need to share what I've experienced. I don't need to share traumas that I've experienced or violent ones or any of that. And also, shouldn't that kind of be the expectation? I mean, you and I have talked about this in kind of intensely around how is this even okay? Like, even in the industry, how is it okay that someone can have a key to somebody's home
Right.
for days that they don't know? And nobody, and also, I don't know if anybody here knows about this, but in the industry, it's a blind, what do they call it? A blind hire or something like that. Nobody knows who this person was. Like it took 2 days to figure out who this person was, track them down to say, hey, can you bring the key back? And I, and I just kind of went, in fact, yeah, they weren't mocking me. They kind of saw what was happening, oh, well, I'm so sorry, and profusely apologizing, but also going, it took me saying, well, he was really nice and everything. And I know you guys do background checks and stuff like that, and I know that he was a very nice man, but also so was Ted Bundy. And it took me
Right.
saying that for them to finally get it to click on like, oh, okay. So I know that we kind of went down a little side tangent here because I am going to speak to this more and share why I felt that way in Patreon. But with this whole provider and expectations, that's what I've been experiencing. I know
Well,
you've been
yeah.
experiencing something different, but
Yeah, same but different. And the thing is that just blows my mind is, they were asking you to provide a reason, or why didn't you share the reason? Number one, it should be a safety concern, just generally speaking, but also, why do you have to provide a reason to be validated?
Mhm.
I mean, that's something that I see just rampantly, just within the collective in so many different places. Like, why do I have to explain myself in order to feel validated, to feel heard?
Or to
I
even
mean,
have action be taken. It wasn't until
yeah.
I said that the action was taken.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then they
Yeah.
kind of went, oh, they weren't even thinking about, they honestly said that. We weren't even thinking about that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many crimes that happen, especially with women in the real estate industry, that I just went, what do you mean? What do you mean? This is what
Unbelievable.
you had no idea and stuff. So anyway, but the good thing about this is I do want to share that um honestly, I just cared to have my key back and for him to have that awareness. And that's what's happened. And I love that's the beauty of Aikido and the philosophy behind it is that now if I would have been coming out sideways and I wouldn't have been here in this situation and grounded in who I am, oh
Hmm.
yeah, you can bet your ass they would be getting a call from an attorney or something like that because there's so many grounds for a lawsuit with what happened. But that's not what I wanted. That's not what I want to do. I just wanted the key back and to feel safe again, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that everything ended up, you know, being okay. I didn't realize that you had gotten your key back yet. So that is good news. I'm glad that everything is resolved.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So yeah, just to go a little bit of a different direction with this, some of the things that I've been reflecting upon and experiencing in different ways around like the provider and the expectation is now it happens all the time. It happens, and it can be men or women. So I just want to put that out there. But this expectation that if someone, say, even gives you a gift, that you owe them something automatically in return. This is something that has just been it just burns me up, Lori. It burns me up because you know what? When I give a gift, I don't have an expectation of getting something in return. When I give a gift, it's coming from my heart. It's coming from a place of like it makes me feel good, right? I
Mhm.
find joy when I do something for someone. And that kind of trickles into like every area of my life. So for someone to, on their own accord, make a suggestion, follow through with it, and then turn around and tell me I owe them something, just no, no, I
Mhm.
have intolerance there. That's where my intolerance comes out. And it is not coming out sideways. It is 100% valid. Yeah.
Mhm. That's like one of that is mm, like
I know.
there's so many things because when there's anything with a string attached, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And I know, I mean, There's so many incidences. I mean, you can look at that with any kind of, even just dates. We were
Dating.
talking about this in the
Hmm.
beginning. Well,
Yeah.
before we hopped on, we were talking about it and just like dates, any kind of intimate or romantic relationships, friendships, families. I mean, anything. When somebody does something and then now there's a string attached, or they hold something over you, or they
Right.
expect sex, or they expect loyalty, they expect it doesn't matter what that is. And especially if it's something that you didn't ask for, didn't like, I mean, it's the audacity.
Yeah.
You can tell
So
it, I'm in the intolerance right now. It's the audacity that anyone can think that I owe you anything because you did something. Like, why aren't you doing that? From now, I have to look at the intention behind it. They
yeah.
obviously were doing it because they expected something in return, and they didn't do it out of the purity of their heart.
Right. It's a manipulation. And so, and that's where, I think about, like, I've gone through this thought process around, excuse me, around, okay, so if you genuinely are offering a gift, then from my perspective, the thing to do would be to wait, because the type of person that I am, I'm going to want to reciprocate naturally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to want to give the energy back in a way and say thank you and I appreciate this. So, like, when there's an expectation attached to it, that completely takes that ability away from me to say, "Oh, I really appreciated this," and to find joy in receiving, right? It takes
Mm-hmm.
all of that away.
Well, and that's the whole thing with giving and
Yeah,
receiving. Like, this is
right.
actually human nature, right? Human nature, I
Hmm.
feel like, is to want to give. If we're living from a pure heart, then we want to give. We want to provide. We want to share our love, right, with our loved ones in this way. And I know we can go into like the love languages and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, just I feel that's just being a human with an open heart. That's living with an open
Hmm.
heart, and you just giving of yourself in whatever way that may be. And then the other person giving of themselves back in
Yeah,
whatever way that
exactly.
may be. And it really is also like that's important for us as humans. That's
Hmm.
important to keep an open heart, even is to be able to reciprocate, to give and reciprocate and give and reciprocate without the expectation. I
Right.
think people do this so unconsciously. I
Yeah.
don't I don't think I think there's a lot of conditioning around it. And um, I know just with my experiences with different family members and I'm like, I want to share all of this stuff in the Patreon group. And so I'm sitting here like there's a ton of conditioning around that based off of how someone was raised, right? Or even their own traumas that may have happened. They may have
Absolutely.
had things stolen from them or something like that. And if they were raised with providers, so parents or anybody like that that would do that, right? And
Hmm.
so this is what I mean by unconscious. Unconsciously doing it, I don't think people actually do. And if they do, if they actually intend on this, then maybe they need to take a look at the type of person that they are and but checking into the heart because naturally our heart is not operating in that space.
Right. And what happens is when you're operating from that place of conditioning, when you're operating from that place of projection, it builds resentment and it builds insecurity, and it's manipulation. It's emotional abuse, actually. 1000%. It's gaslighting. It is the list could go on for all of the reasons why it's wrong. Um, and it's really unfortunate because, like you're saying, it does happen, I believe, a lot of times unconsciously and maybe not intentionally. But the issue really, the thing that makes it an issue is when someone has a conversation with you and shares that they have a boundary around it and shares that it does not make them feel good, and then you continue to do it, then that is a conscious choice at that point. If you have been made aware and you choose to do something different, then that's intentional and that is manipulation.
I don't even understand that. Like, that's something that's so far out of my way of thinking that I don't understand. So I mean, I am truly, I would love to hear people's thoughts on that, on why, if if you already know that this is not the way that somebody wants to interact or relate, then why continue to do that? And this might be a good question for Ennis, actually.
Well, yeah, exactly. I was just thinking that I would love to ask it in a start that question and then discuss it on our next conversation with him. Oh, shoot. I totally forgot what I was going to say now. um,
Well, for anybody that doesn't know who Ennis is, go check out the narcissistic abuse playlist, because he's amazing in every way. And we're able to ask him all of these deep questions because he is somebody that's aware that he used to do that. So he shares that with us. Um, did it come back?
um, no, I totally lost it. It'll come back if it's meant to. Maybe it's meant for Patreon.
I think it is. In
Yeah.
fact, I actually feel like there is so much more that we are going to speak to over in Patreon. I feel like the stuff that I want to share is going to be pretty vulnerable. So I want to be over there in that space. But this applies to so many things. So if you are somebody that experiences this, when somebody provides, regardless, I mean, we can look at all aspects of our lives actually with this. I gave examples in the beginning of business related and me being a client or a customer, but then you also gave an experience around relationship in your life, like whether that's friendship or whatever that may be. But this can go into dating. I mean, I know that, so I was date raped. And that's actually how I lost my virginity, was that, and it was going on a date, and then that was the expectation afterwards. So I want to share that experience a little more in Patreon. But we can look at it. I mean, it's everywhere. And I think that's actually part of our society, is that expectation. It's that providing. Here, I'm providing you something, and now, well, I expect this back. And what do you mean? You don't have boundaries. You don't have this. You don't have that. You don't have autonomy. All of those things. So
Right.
we can go super deep into this subject over in Patreon. We'd love for you to join us. Is there anything else you wanted to share here for YouTube?
Yeah, just the fact that when we're going back to Gene Key 4 again with the intolerance and the gift being understanding and forgiveness, it's really important to come back to that place where, like, I can have understanding for the why that someone is acting in an unconscious way. I can even have understanding for the why that it's intentional. But that does not mean that I need to have intolerance for it. I mean, that I need to tolerate it. That's what I meant to say, that I need to tolerate it. I can forgive, I can have understanding, but I don't have to tolerate it.
Exactly.
So, and I think that's important for everyone, no matter if you're joining us on YouTube or on Patreon.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of the Gene Keys. If nobody knows about, or if you're new, let me say that. If you're new to the Gene Keys, go check it out. We'll have the website down below that you can go check it out. But that's the beauty of the Gene Keys, is that, and especially this one, because I journey with it every day. I feel like there is this intolerance, and then we move into the gift of understanding. Like if we are in the shadow of intolerance, then it's coming out sideways. And that's when people think someone's having a bad day. They think that they are grouchy or they're brash or they're aggressive or like all the things, right? That's whenever it's
Bitchy.
coming outside. Yeah, bitchy, all of that. Go get laid, whatever that is, that, and you're not being taken seriously. And the more you're not taken seriously or you're confirmed or validated, the more it's going to come out sideways. And that's when road rage happens, everything else. But when you are in the sovereignty of this gene key and you start to look at self and you start to go, okay, so why am I tolerating this? Why am I feeling like I can't tolerate this anymore? Then this is when we get to use discernment, right? We start to go, well, why is this happening? That's what moves us into the gift of understanding. I almost said forgiveness. That's what moves us into the gift of understanding. And when we're able to understand and we're able to live in someone else's shoes, that's actually when we begin to understand. But just because we understand doesn't mean we need to tolerate. And then that's even more beautiful because then that usually moves us up into the gift or the city of forgiveness. And when we can truly forgive, I feel like that actually goes into a circle again down to the intolerance, because that's actually when we can truly forgive is when we don't have the expectations of others as well. We get to be grounded and we're anchored in who we are. And now we can use that discernment to make decisions on what's not in alignment. Because if you're all of a sudden at a like, I'm this intolerance, I'm cutting it off, I'm, I'm this, I'm that, whatever. That is showing you that there is something, whatever's happening in this situation is not in alignment with you. And so that's the beauty. That's the diamond, is now you get to go, oh, okay, I get to use discernment. Where is this not serving me? And how can I make different choices?
Exactly. Perfectly said.
Amazing. All right. Well, let's start or finish the conversation over in Patreon, because that one's going to be amazing. Okay. We hope you join us over there, and we'll see you next time. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
And live your life today.